folks, welcome to our wrap-up of Vietnam, where we tell you about our accommodation, the food, the attractions, the transport, and most importantly, how much the whole thing cost us.
So we were there for just over 4 weeks, and we had come out of India, and India was quite an experience. We've got some videos there you can go back and check. So we weren't quite sure what to expect. However, it felt like we came into this ultra clean modern world called Vietnam. The accommodation, it ranged from $40, that's 40 New Zealand dollars, about 20 pounds or so. But for that, we got a pretty classy hotel room. It was spotlessly clean, modern facilities, couldn't complain about it, and they threw in a rather grand breakfast as well. At the other end of the scale, I think the lowest we paid was 13 New Zealand dollars, it was about 6 or 7 pounds. And for that, it was a fairly humble room. Not too many bells and whistles, but it did include a breakfast, and it was on the resort island of Cat Ba. So $40 down to $13, wonderful accommodation. And some of the people we met who stayed in hostels and things, again, they had great deals. They were paying single figures, sort of $7, $8, $9, plus they were given breakfast, and on some occasions they were given beer. So in terms of accommodation, I think Vietnam was pretty hard to beat.
Certainly couldn't fault it. We're leaving Ho Chi Minh. We are on our way to Hoi An today, and we are really sad to be leaving this hotel. It's been, I think, the nicest place we've stayed in all year as far as paid accommodation goes. Super comfortable and super clean bed. Everything about this room has been spick and span. Tea and coffee facilities, and this awesome bathroom. And this shower here, it might not seem a big deal having a shower, but every other bathroom we've had has actually had a wet room. So not only do we get a proper shower, but it actually has jets in it. So we have had an awesome 4 days here.
It took us 4 days to learn how to use it.
The other thing we really loved was the food. A huge variety of food in Vietnam. The local Vietnamese cuisine is really good. We ate a lot of banh mi, which was essentially a bread roll with pork in it. We've been in Hue for a few days now. The weather has turned on us a bit, though it's been very wet and it is quite chilly now. But we've just come out to get some lunch, and I tell you, for 20,000 dong, which is about 125 New Zealand, you can get these really awesome banh mi, probably the best that we have had in Vietnam so far. So it's not all doom and gloom. Very delicious. Also, we had quite a bit of pho, which is the traditional sort of noodle kind of soup dish. But we were really impressed with all the other types of cuisine we could get. So we actually ate a lot of Japanese food. We had kebabs. What else did we try?
We had vegetables, which we didn't have a lot of in India.
Yeah, the food was really fresh and healthy, wasn't it?
A lot of green vegetables that were sort of lightly cooked. Yeah, great flavours. It was nice to have the variety. We found that when we were in India, the diet became a little bit sort of same old day after day. But Vietnam, great huge contrast, variety. And it felt really healthy.
And we got to try some things we'd never heard of before, such as the egg coffee, which sounded a bit gross to start with, but turned out to be extremely delicious.
Going on here?
Well, we've just finished lunch, and once again we ate our food before we thought about taking a video of it, but we've been coming to this place, I don't know, about 3 times in the last 3 days, because they serve the most delicious crepes and egg coffee, which when I first heard about it I thought that's going to be disgusting, but they use egg yolks, and apparently they used to use egg yolks when they didn't have milk, and now it's become quite a thing, but it's like having a really nice coffee with a bit of custard on top. There's definitely a lot to see and do in Vietnam. It's got quite an interesting history, obviously, with its war against America and its French colonisation. So there's a lot of museums and more museums that you can go to. We went to Halong Bay, which was really good. We really enjoyed that day. Lots of temples and things you can visit. There was a lot more we could have done, but one of the big attractions for us ended up being Da Nang Hospital. So if you've seen any of our other videos, you'll know that Neil had appendicitis while we were there. So we ended up spending a bit of time at the hospital, and that does slow down our sightseeing a bit.
That was my fault, I must admit. So I spent 3 days in Da Nang Hospital, and I've got to say, it was a pretty good experience. My first time in a hospital, and it happened to be Vietnam. No complications, lovely staff. And yes, we did have to pay the bill, but it was a fairly modest cost, plus it was covered by health insurance. So it didn't really interrupt our holiday, but it did mean that I had to sort of like just pull back on a few things. So I didn't go kayaking in Halong Bay. I didn't go swimming in Halong Bay. No. I watched the others do that.
We did, and it was awesome.
Transport. So when we were there in Vietnam, we used taxis, we used the train, we took 3 internal flights, we took a ferry, and we took a bus. So we sort of felt like we covered the bases. And we also took scooters, which was a really simple sort of local method of getting around. Transport was fantastic, brilliant. It felt like we were in a sort of first world country. It didn't cost a lot. Again, online you can book things very easily, so it felt like it was a very, very easy part of our travel.
One hiccup, and that was when I booked some bus tickets for the girls and I to go from Hue to Hoi An for a night. So it was supposed to be a simple, direct bus ride for, I think it was $27 for the 3 of us to go there and back. When we went to the address they gave us to catch the bus in Hue, though, it was at a travel agent's, but they said no, it wasn't their bus, and no bus turned up. So we went back to the hotel, and the woman on reception very kindly made a few phone calls and said they're sending another bus to pick you up. What happened though was the bus that picked us up was a tour bus, and so instead of going directly to Hoi An, we went via a fishing village, we went over the Hai Van Pass, and we got to check out Marble Mountain in Da Nang, which was really good. We had a similar problem though when we went to leave Hoi An. Went to the address that was on the tickets, and they said no, that's not our bus either. So we ended up having to take a taxi or a private car all the way from Hoi An back to Hawaii, which cost about $60 US, but because I contacted the company that we booked the bus tickets through and explained what happened, they refunded us the original money. So it ended up costing the same, and we had a much better experience. So yeah, wasn't a disaster in the end at all.
So what did we spend? So we were there for 4 weeks, and we spent just under 100 New Zealand dollars a day. That's for both of us. So that's about £50 a day. And we travelled at a pretty comfortable level. We could easily have wound that down. We could have stayed in cheaper accommodation. We could have had more street food. But we felt that we could sort of cruise along in a middle class sort of a way. And it was, yeah,
it felt like we had a really good, really sort of high-class holiday, didn't it? For not a lot of money. Yeah.
High class by our standards.
By our standards. But yeah, it's definitely value for money going to Vietnam. People are friendly, the food is awesome. We had a really good time.
And I guess also it depends on where you're coming from. So in our case, we had just come from India, so suddenly it seemed a whole lot more calm, clean. Like we thought the roads were quite orderly in Vietnam. Other people may not think that, depending on where you come from. So that is part of our sort of context.
Yeah, but we highly recommend it as a holiday destination.
So it's money changing time, and here in Saigon it's a little bit different. We don't go to a bank, we go to the store on the corner. It appears to be a gold or jewellery store, and the rates that they offer are very, very sharp, better than the bank. So that's 5.85 million dong. That should last a couple of days.